Attention parents and coaches. Do you wish you had a safe social media platform for your youth athletes? Fortunately for you, there's a revolutionary new app that helps with just that. Introducing Small Player, Big Play. Small Player, Big Play app provides young athletes, parents, and coaches a user-friendly sports social media platform. The app allows users to connect with friends, make new friends, create groups, text, chat, and post pictures and videos of you and your teammates participating in your favorite sport or activity. To begin, users can simply download and sign up for the app using an email account. Younger users have the ability to sign up using their smartphone and a parent's email address. From there, users can begin to interact and engage with other users of the app. Small Player Big Play app also gives users the ability to live stream full games and events. You can live stream your event so that friends, family, or anyone in the world can see you in action. Users can also share posts from the app to their other social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter. What are you waiting for? Get in the game and share your love of sports with the world. Download the Small Player Big Play app today.
You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting across from me is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, good to be here. Hard to believe it's November, except for the fact that it was dark super early today.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens as the months continue to tick along, and then we get to, the end of daylight saving time, and we have to fall back, and, well, here we are. It's 4 o'clock and it's pitch black out. Not yet. Soon, though. I know by like my birthday, it's like, it's bad.
Right, and that's the thing that I was thinking of was it's not that, like it was dark early today, but we still have a month and a half, almost 2 months of where it's going to get darker even earlier.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But we are not here. Well, we're here in person, just the two of us, but we're being joined this evening by someone else. And we're looking forward to talking to him and what I'm calling here kind of our 2020 exit interview as we recap the season that was. We get to talk to head coach Doug Dahms once again, and we're going to talk about not just the Manheim Central game, but kind of everything, especially the way the last month of this season went. And we're going to bring him in right now. So, Coach Dahms, thank you once again for joining us.
Good to be here.
All right, well, we have a lot of questions to ask you here this evening, but we appreciate you taking the time. And, Justin, I'm going to put you on the spot right away. Do you want to start with the game that just was, or you want to throw a few other questions at Coach first?
Why don't we start with the game that just was?
Okay, sure. So, Wilson went to Manheim to take on Manheim Central on Friday, it was supposed to be Friday evening. It got moved to Saturday with a noon kickoff, which, whenever schedules get changed, it's an issue. But from a personal perspective, I love photographing during the day. So I was very appreciative of the mid, like the noon kickoff. That was very, very good for me. So that was great. But I know throwing schedules off is always an issue. But Wilson went to Manheim and came away with a victory, 41-20. And man, things certainly were going the Bulldogs' way in the first quarter. I believe scoring on, was it three plays?
Yeah, first of their 3 plays, they scored a touchdown on each of them, which is incredible.
Pretty impressive. But, Coach, what was the reasoning behind the delay of the game from Friday to Saturday? What was the reason for that?
Well, Manheim Central had a COVID scare. And so they were out of school on Tuesday and Wednesday and came back. Well, I guess Wednesday they're always out of school. It's like a
the virtual setting.
virtual thing. Yeah, but they were out on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they felt that they needed to get at least a full practice day in on Thursday, and then a walkthrough Friday so they could play on Saturday. What's kind of interesting, we were originally scheduled for 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, but their band said, no, we have the field and you can't have it. So we got pushed back to noon.
Yeah,
Coop ought to like that one.
Yeah, when we arrived, they were doing the band recognition. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, got to kick the game off at noon, and there's a lot of stuff that had happened in the week leading up to this game that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But what was it like this week, just keeping the team focused and motivated after all the drama that happened over the previous 10 days or so? Was it a difficult thing to do? And how were the seniors reacting?
I didn't know how they were going to react, because it's been a long time since we were playing a game that really didn't mean anything other than, it didn't count towards the league championship. All it was a win or a loss. And with the double letdown that happened this week, I was a little concerned how they were going to react. So we really played up, this is your last game. It's your last game. It's the last opportunity you're going to have to play next to your friends, guys that you've been playing with for many, many years. And let's play it with class, and let's, put an exclamation point on your season. And I thought, we came out and that's what we did early on, but then we got a little complacent, halfway through, after it was so easy to score and everything, and left them back into it for a little while. But I don't know if the kids were ever nervous,
Right.
They just knew they could score when they had to.
It was interesting. That actually came up in a conversation I had with someone before about how they felt that the Wilson kids really did, and not just in this game, but in other moments, have had that, I think they have that confidence that they're going to win. And sometimes that's really helpfpful. Other times it can, we sometimes talk about the starts that we have, especially when we go to McCaskey or something like that. That can be that knowledge or that feeling of confidence that you're going to win can be a double-edged sword. It can be great, but it can also be, you have to fight that complacency sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard to keep the pedal to the metal, in games like that. And, in a game, we stressed all week, let's have fun. Practice was a lot lighter in terms of there wasn't as much yelling, or, it was, we set up drills that were a little bit more fun, and still got the job done. But, it's hard to push when it doesn't really count for anything.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. So what is your take on what happened with Manheim Central this year? Was this something that you think they would have anticipated going to the year, having such a down year for them? Wilson and Manheim Central are the two darlings of the Lancaster Lebanon League with over, I think, 53 or more combined section championships. And, Wilson's just finishing off, 57 straight non-losing seasons, 45 straight winning seasons. Manheim Central have been in the same boat. They hadn't missed the playoffs since 1991, hadn't lost, back-to-back games or 3 in a row, 4 in a row since the 70s. Is this something that caught them by surprise? And what do you take away from it coaching at Wilson?
I think that it was one of those years where they weren't overly talented. Typically they have a stud somewhere, a stud quarterback, a stud running back, a stud receiver, and, they had a lot of nice football players, but they didn't have that outstanding football player. And they were a little bit young at some positions and a little undersized at some positions. And it was one of those years, when you're at the top, every year like they are, like we are, if you're going to have a down year, boy, the Sharks are going to start circling. Boy, and they smell blood, they're going for it. So they'll be back. I'm not concerned about that. They have tradition on their side and everything else. But, I'm sure it was a rough year. In the game, when we went out and scored in the first 3 plays, that we had the ball, you could hear their stands because it was pretty quiet. starting to yell at their coaches. So it doesn't take long for the worm to turn.
No, that doesn't. That it doesn't for sure. And you bring it up. This is all related to playing during a pandemic, the limited amount of people in the stadium. Justin and I noticed a lot this year that we felt we could hear coaches being very animated, opposing coaches being very animated more often than we were used to. And we weren't sure if we could chalk that up to just the limited crowd noise or if coaches are a little bit more vocal than in years past. We noticed it a lot with Cedar Crest, but definitely in the first half against Manheim Central, their coaches were riding the refs repeatedly.
Yeah, it wasn't just from the sideline either. I can tell you that was coming from the stands too. Oh my gosh, it was. Yeah, and I some of it was probably caught on the huddle tape too, because like during the play, people were just screaming stuff that you wouldn't really want to be caught on tape yelling. So.
I always turn the volume off when I watch huddles.
Might be a good idea. But we noticed with you can see it on the stat sheet that over the last 2 weeks, I think Wilson was penalized a lot, and we heard some people mention that. Could that be due to the opposing coaches being very much in the ear of the refs? We definitely saw that on Saturday at Manheim Central. Or someone also mentioned that there are young and inexperienced refs this year because of the referee shortage that's going on, not just in the LL but around the state. What do you chalk up to the increase in penalties this season?
Well, some of those penalties were brought on by our own players. A lot of times when you get a holding call, it's because the back hits outside of the hole and then the player starts to turn. Your lineman's trying to turn him, let's say block him to the outside, and the back hits outside. And then when the guy starts to turn, your lineman ends up holding. So some of those holding calls are the fault of the backs. Although every time when you're in a game when one team has a preponderance of holding calls and the other team doesn't, it usually means that those coaches are working the refs a little bit better, or who knows. I know we had relatively inexperienced officiating crews the last two games, and I think they probably have a tendency to make some calls that aren't necessarily the right call or aren't consistent.
Yeah, well, we saw that horse collar last week was an interesting call, and I know there was a couple holding calls yesterday. But like you said, some of those were brought on by our own players. It's not to make excuses. It just seemed that there was a lot of head-scratching decisions by the referees the last few weeks. Again, it didn't come back to harm Wilson in the win column, but it's just something that I know a lot of people have been asking me about. So figured get your take on that while we have you here. So Caleb Brown really opened it up the last few weeks, setting a record last week against Hempfield and then breaking it this week. Is that something coming into the season that was anticipated of Caleb being such a mobile quarterback that he had the potential to have huge games like that? Or was it really a matchup thing over the last couple of weeks that you were able to unleash him and his speed at the position?
Well, if you remember, he got hurt in Governor Mifflin game and missed the game and then came back. So we were a little hesitant to run him a whole lot initially. But as he got healthier, we started running him more. Most of those runs are, he has the option of handing it off or keeping it depending on who we're reading and what that person does. But his speed obviously is something other teams had to, account for. And without the threat without a deep threat, from pass receiver, we knew we were going to have to run him more than we typically would.
Well, he was certainly able to take advantage of his opportunities, rushing for nearly 450 yards over the last 2 weeks. And like I said, set the record as for rushing as a quarterback last week and broke it with, I think, what do you have, 243 yards, I believe, yesterday? Something
like that, yeah.
He was a huge player for Wilson down the stretch. It was nice to see him healthy. But another guy that we got to see maybe a little bit more of yesterday, got to see him on offense, was sophomore Cameron Jones. And we saw him. Well, honestly, we didn't see much of him or heard much about him on defense because he was playing so well that people weren't really throwing towards him or testing him. And when they did try to test him, he met the challenge, and opposing quarterbacks kind of stayed away from him. But his athleticism is hard to ignore. So it was nice to see him on offense yesterday. Is that something that could be more prevalent as we move into 2021? Cam Jones working both ways?
Yeah, he'll be playing on both sides of the ball next year. I mean, this year we kind of, with all the injuries we had to running backs, he was kind of forced into playing a little bit of running back for us, and also some return work because of Troy's injury and Mason's injury. But he's a special talent, very calm sees the field, and yeah, he's going to be. As Coach Palm said, a utility knife for us. You know, he could play a little quarterback, he could play a little wide receiver, could play a little running back. We'll see.
Yeah, so he's a slash type player who, like you said, he got to be the return guy yesterday with injuries to Troy and not wanting to overuse him, and he promptly had 2 punt return touchdowns, both of which were called back. But still, obviously, the electricity was certainly flowing, and he has a field vision that certainly will be exciting to see next year. And it'll be great to have him back at defensive back. Justin, you have anything else to ask about Manheim Central Game 7? So Wilson finishes 6-1, which is a great season by all standards. Undefeated in section play, first outright championship since 2016. Absolutely stupendous. But I know the focus from everyone, the coaches and the players especially, was on the playoffs. And I don't even know where really to start there, because there's 2 facets to it. Last weekend, it was all about numbers. And right before we did this show a week ago is when we found out that Harrisburg will be playing State College on Monday, getting them to a 4th game. So what was going through your mind or the coaches in the team as Harrisburg was making this push to become eligible? What were you talking about with the team, and what did you have any discussions with District 3 about things that happened the final 2 weeks of the season?
Well, as Harrisburg was seeking another game, we realized that if they got a game, that we were going to be left out. So we went out and started looking to play another game on the same Monday that Harrisburg played, figuring if we could find a team that, had a pretty good record and play them and beat them, that would put us ahead of both the York schools. And so we pretty much had East Pennsboro lined up. We were going to call each other Saturday morning just to confirm. And District 3 called Drew and said that we could play that Monday, but it wouldn't count towards the power ratings. So that kind of took any control we had over the playoffs out of our hands.
Did they give you any reason why it was okay for one school to try to cram in as many games as possible, but it wasn't okay for someone else to do it?
Well, basically they said because they didn't have their 4 games, they were allowed to do that. But we were just doing it to increase our power rating, which is what we were trying to do, no doubt about it. But, I don't know why it's any different because Harrisburg was trying to do it just to make playoffs also.
Right. Yeah, that's where the confusion comes up, I think, with everyone at Wilson. The community and the fans are wondering the same thing. Why was it okay for one school to do it but not another? And I don't think anyone ever said that Wilson wasn't doing it for power ratings. That's absolutely what it was. And this was a unique year. It's not something that you could do in a regular year. You can't add an 11th game before power ratings. So the argument always seemed kind of a little weird that this has been happening in the past and they wanted to slam the door on it.
Yeah,
I don't quite understand their reasoning.
We got into it a little bit last week too about how it seemed like they were picking and choosing how they were going to be upset about quote unquote manipulating power rankings, because in other sections, teams outright manipulated power rankings
by refusing to play.
Right. By scheduling, decisions, and they just kind of let that go.
Yeah. So
it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I had a long talk with D3 reps and said that power rankings don't work when you don't play outside your league.
Right.
Both York teams, the York League said they weren't allowed to play outside their league. So that takes care of power rankings and then they didn't play each other or we would have been in.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. And that's all related to this being such a weird year and things being truncated and changed. But when you have what was supposed to be the 4 teams in the playoffs, both of them should have played each other. Central York and William Penn should have played each other. Harrisburg and Central Dauphin should have played each other in a regular year. That would have been required as division foes. But so there was just so many things.
We would have been in.
Yeah. Yep. For sure, without a doubt. But obviously that didn't happen. Everyone's disappointed about it. There wasn't anything that could be done. Then the District 3 meeting happens on Tuesday. They unveil the final power ratings and the bracket, and Wilson's obviously not in. But just 2 to 3 hours later, it's made known that Harrisburg is unfortunately suffering from a COVID case, and they need to be pulled. I knew right away what was going to happen. Nothing was going to happen. William Penn was going to advance because that is exactly what District 3 said they would do just a few hours earlier. Of course, there was an opportunity there because of the odd circumstances surrounding the power ratings and teams becoming qualified just a day before, for them to change things and maybe in some people's eyes make things right. But that was to no avail. Did you hold out any hope at any point when you heard about Harrisburg that they would shift Wilson into the playoffs, or was that something you knew wasn't a possibility?
Well, we certainly hoped, because it's my understanding that they found out just very brief. It wasn't 2 to 3 hours. I think it was like an hour and 15 minutes or something after the meeting had ended, and they reconvened and had another 45-minute discussion over whether or not to add us, and they decided not to. And I can understand you got to set a time and everything,
right?
But the crazy part about that is we spent all weekend planning for Central Dauphin because Harrisburg didn't have a game and said they weren't going to get one, and they don't get one till Sunday night at 5:30. So York spent all weekend planning for York Central, or Central York. We spent all weekend planning for Central Dauphin. So it wasn't like we weren't game planned for the other team. And then, we tried to make our point. Listen, COVID, you talk about being flexible, you talk about bending, you have to be flexible, and let's do what's best for the kids. And, obviously having 3 teams instead of 4, leaving the team at home, that wasn't best for the whole situation.
Yeah, and we saw some people, media members, talking about how probably the what was it, Justin? 6th or 7th best team in 6A in District 3 was now given a free pass to the district championship game. It's that kind of stuff that makes the season really weird. And you see elsewhere in District 3, like in, I believe, 4A, where Bishop McDevitt's ranked in the state undefeated, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So, yeah, just a weird year all around. But what was happening in 6A definitely caught a lot of people's attention. And Justin and I have been doing high school football stuff online for a few years now, and I've never seen the internet, which is known for polarizing positions and 50-50
people
split,
being contrarian just for the sake of being contrarian,
is not a single person anywhere across all of social media said anything but they should put Wilson in. And of course, That's not what
Which
they did.
leads you to exactly how we all knew how this
We
was
all
going
knew,
to end.
yeah, we all knew what would happen. But I do understand. I understand their point of view, saying there has to be a cutoff, there has to be a time, because if you make this exception now, what's the difference if it happens 12
Right.
hours, 24 hours? Some other team is
Yes.
going to say, well, but us, why can't
Right.
you change it? Why can't you make an exception? So I get that, but
It is a little tough, though, when they just finished the meeting, where they're explaining why it was okay to offer flexibility in scheduling to one team, but not to another. I know it's not the same issue, but it seemed like there's a lot of, and this is not just related to the Wilson Harrisburg things, but it's a lot of, it's okay when it's happening in this scenario, but not in this scenario. And again, there were multiple issues across multiple classes of football this year. And I get a lot of those were just because of the crazy year. And that's tough.
Flexibility. That's what they kept saying. We got to be
Yes.
flexible. Schedule, reschedule anytime you want to do it. And then,
Right.
I don't know. I just thought it wasn't very fair.
Which on a separate note, Joey and I have brought this up a couple of times. Like, we were stunned to find out that there is no rule in like the PIAA handbook apparently about playing 3 games over the course of 8 days or something like that.
right.
Like
Right.
we were blown away. Of all the things they do have rules for, that is not a rule. We were shocked.
Yeah. I mean, Harrisburg played 4 games in 17 days.
Right? And State College was
Well, I don't know if you can count their last game because that was
right.
Well,
right.
a TV game to a varsity game,
Yeah.
even though they claimed it was a varsity game.
Right. That brings up another thing, and because that was one of the things that came out. I think it was actually quoted in an article by Mike Drago on the Red and Eagle from, I believe it was Bohannon from Elko, who wanted to talk about integrity, and I was just like, how is scheduling a game and basically calling it a glorified scrimmage not, against the integrity of the game? It just caught me off guard that they kind of seemed a little hypocritical or issuing double standards willy-nilly and not really caring,
Right.
being very public about it too.
Right.
I mean, I didn't hold Harrisburg. I mean, if I was in Harrisburg's shoes, I'd have been trying to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
As we did.
No, Justin and I said the same thing.
Yep, absolutely. And we were talking about the same thing. Like, while it's frustrating, that the teams didn't get to play their league matchups, I can't blame Central York and William Penn. First of all, the league sets those schedules, and that's a classic last week game, and they weren't allowed to play non-league games. Central Dauphin couldn't schedule Harrisburg because Harrisburg wasn't having a season when the schedule was made. The teams, they're just playing out their role in all of this too. Everything's being dictated to them as well. So
the interesting part about that is, if we weren't allowed to play outside of our league, we would have been playing Manheim Township the last week, and we wouldn't have played it.
Yeah.
And both of them would have been undefeated, and we both would have been in playoffs ahead of both York teams.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, Joey and I talked about that. Not only did LL allow for that, well, essentially 2 non-league games, if you want to count the crossover game as a non-league game, but they also shifted the marquee matchups to make sure they happened. Which, in terms of the league, and especially when these things were happening, like, there was no guarantee that there was going to be district playoffs. Like, everybody's like, let's just take this 1 week at a time, kind of thing. So I absolutely understand doing that, and I feel like that was the appropriate way to do it. But yeah, it kind of came back to bite us there.
Well, but the way that the LL did it allowed for there to actually be section champions.
Yeah.
Without having these weird, like, York, Central York and William Penn, they're technically co-champs, and they never played each other.
We joke about, like, the 3-way ties that happen every now and then, because the round robin, like, situations. But imagine splitting it because you just didn't play
Being
each other.
undefeated, yeah.
Well, now I think this week the winner should get to claim it as well.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that upset me a little bit was Harrisburg knew Monday night that they had a potential COVID situation before their, because the kid didn't even, actually they knew Sunday night, because the kid didn't travel with the team to the game. And you would have thought that they could have at least notified District 3 that, listen, we have a potential situation we may not be able to play.
Well,
And they waited till 1:30 to notify everybody.
right. That was another thing that I was kind of throwing out there when this was all happening in a very short period Tuesday afternoon. Harrisburg knew something was up. The school district got the positive back in the morning, if not before, then during the initial District 3 meeting. You think all that outstanding information, they could have been like, because this just happened, we're gonna change it so that we get a full playoffs. We have the proper amount of teams. We don't have to work with a forfeit. It just seems really odd to draw such a distinct line when they were attempting to be flexible for
when
other
they've been
things.
Preaching flexibility for weeks.
I don't want to keep harping on it because
right, and nothing's going to change. But like, it was just kind of, this was our airing of the grievances.
I thought Harrisburg could have notified them of the potential of it happening because they knew.
Right.
I mean, their superintendent knew Monday morning or Tuesday morning that they weren't going to be playing, or that they had the COVID and they were shutting everything down.
Right. Yeah. It just, yeah. But
and it had to come from the athletic director, who's also the head football coach.
Yep. Yeah, that's come up a few times as well. So, 7 games set on the schedule, but District 3 and PIAA approved of extending the season that you could play up to 10 games as long as you had it done by Thanksgiving weekend.
Except for the Monday after the 6th game. They wouldn't allow that one.
Right. Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry. We just said to move on, and then
we're
bring
going to get into
down.
a circle here. So there's potential to add up to a few games after the fact, whether you were in playoffs and lost, or if you just wanted to add a few games, or if you had to reschedule a game. There's part of the flexibility we just were talking about. Did discussions happen to possibly extend the season? Because we know that Wilson is done for the 2020 year. Did you and the coaching staff discuss that? Were you talking with athletic director Drew Kaufman? Did you broach that subject with the players? How did those discussions go?
Well, first we talked about it as a coaching staff, and we pretty much said we're going to leave it up to the players, especially the seniors. I kind of, we had a lot of guys dinged up at the end of the year, so they probably were thinking, well, they're going to miss another game anyway. And we have quite a few kids that play basketball and several that wrestle. And, our kids have a mindset that, we're playing for a league championship, a district championship, a state championship every year. And with that, after that double punch in the gut, I think some teams just play because they want to play games, but I can't remember the last time the last game of the year, the couple last games of the year didn't mean something in terms of the league or district playoffs. And that's where we would have been. And then who are we going to get to play us?
Right.
Was the next thing. But
yeah, it takes. It's not just willing to be playing. You have to find somebody who's willing to be and able to play you.
Right. So the kids were. I would say they were. If I had said we were going to play, they would have played. But I don't know how much their heart would have been in it. Some probably would have liked to keep playing. Some, just felt that they were so disappointed and let down. They were just ready for it to end. So, with that, without having, 100% of your team on board to continue forward. And I understood. I told them, listen, it's totally up to you. It doesn't make any difference to me one way or the other. So don't feel like you have to say yes because I'm here. And, I think none of them said no, but you could tell by their reactions that a lot of them just didn't feel like they were into it anymore. You can only take so much disappointment.
And then I had Joey and I have these conversations literally all the time, but I had said just when we were kind of guessing what was going to happen just between each other, I said, I don't know. I feel like that double gut punch, from Sunday into Tuesday, I guess, eventually, like I was like, that probably just, that roller coaster was probably enough for some people. So,
and I think that's pretty much the way the the mindset went.
Right.
Once you're out of it,
yeah.
Once you're out of it, the kids start thinking about winter sports.
Right.
And I don't blame them. It's
right.
I understand.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in a place where, like you said, that they're not used to that. Like we talk all the time about how many extra games our kids have gotten to play over the course of 3/4 years, depending on when they come up, as opposed to most other programs, and it's insane.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a different mindset.
Yep.
Other teams that are playing, going, 5-5, are thinking, okay, here's a chance to get a couple more games, maybe get to 500. I know Manheim Township has a full slate. He's trying to get his kids as many games, but they're sitting there with nothing. They weren't going to make the playoffs. They weren't going to win the league. So he just saying, oh, let's get them a couple more games.
Right.
But our kids' mindset was different, I think.
Justin, do you have anything else to ask about Manheim Central the last few weeks, 2020 in general?
Just in general, like I know this is something we talked about before, but we didn't really get to do some like the interviews after the games, just trying to keep our distance, like literally and figuratively, this year. But the way the first game went down, it just kind of just beat up. For the way they responded and rallied to win that game at Township and then run off, an undefeated section and league schedule. Like what are your thoughts, or how would you summarize like how they responded to that and how guys stepped up?
Well, the Mifflin game was one of those that I think if we score right before halftime, if you remember, we were down on the 3-yard line. I think if we score right before halftime, that's a whole different football game. But they stop us right before half, and then they come out, and one thing leads to another, and we start getting kids hurt, and it was just a disappointing start, to say the least. And then you go into the Manheim Township game, and you're sitting there with, basically we have 4 pretty good weapons between, Caleb and Troy and Mason and Jaden, and 3 of them aren't going to play in the Township game, which for all intents and purposes is the first game of the year in the league, and it's a league championship game. So it was probably one of my better, Thursday night speeches to the kids, and better pregame speeches to the kids, and better job of getting them to believe that they could win the game, because, in their minds, there were a lot of doubt. And we came out, and like I said, that has to rank up there as one of the better wins in my career, because, without all those weapons, and then we go down there and, give it to, Jaden Jones and Brubaker and the kids that stepped in for those guys. They did a great job, and the game played out the way I hoped it would play out. I said we needed to score early. We needed to get a couple breaks, and, we needed to play well and with a lot of energy. And we did all those things. We scored on the first offensive play. Cappy blocked a punt for a touchdown. They muffed the punt that we recovered and then put in. And we held Ivy to almost nothing until that last play.
Right.
With 2 seconds left or 1 second left in the game.
Yeah, and after see him light up Hempfield and Cocalico in back-to-back weeks, it's absolutely amazing. You mentioned it being one of the better victories in your coaching career, and just the incredible preparations from the coaching staff and the kids buying into everything that you all threw at them to win that game on the road too. Like it's just
that was incredible.
A very incredible mixture of circumstances to come out on top, and most likely, like you said, kind of seal the section championship with that win. You just knew if you took care of business, you were fine, because the biggest hurdle you had already cleared.
Right.
Well, it put our own destiny in our own hands.
Yep.
Which is. But the funny part, we kid Coach Wolver about this all the time. Coach Wolver was extremely sick that week, so he wasn't at practice and wasn't at the game. So, had to kind of dust off the old defensive coordinator hat. Between Matt Bender and I, we fumbled and bumbled our way through enough to win the game.
Yeah.
Well, it came out in Wilson's favor, so the fumbling and bumbling work. So we'll take it there for sure. Um, Now, I don't want to look too far ahead so quickly, but 2021, you're graduating a quarterback again. You've got a lot of key guys back, but again, you're losing a lot of linemen. You're losing a lot of sparks along the defensive line. What do you see as the biggest obstacle heading into the off season, if you can call it that, for the team in 2021? Is it position? Is it leadership? Is there something that sticks out that you desperately need to find over the next 9 months?
Somehow we got to get it across. I mean, I think we have a really nice nucleus coming back. We got to get them hungry. We got to get them with an attitude that they're going to work their butts off, because we have some guys that if they could put on 10 or 15 pounds of muscle, we're going to have some good size. We got a couple of nice running backs back in Jones and Jaden and Goose Leonard, Gavin Leonard, and then you throw Cameron Jones in there. Defensively, we've got almost the entire secondary back. We've got a bunch of linemen back. A bunch of linebackers back. We're going to miss Jeff Collison. But there's another young kid there that's really quick. He's got to put on another 10 or 15 pounds. So I think defensively we could be pretty tough. Offensively, we've got a lot of linemen to replace, but I think we got the pieces there to do that. The biggest piece to replace offensively is obviously going to be Caleb. So we'll wait and see how that develops, how the young quarterbacks develop, and the battle that goes on there. And, we'll have some size we're cautiously optimistic if we can find a quarterback. Our quarterbacks need to mature.
Sure, and there's a handful of them that I guess will be vying for that spot. You got Gannon back, and then you have Crocona and Donato, plus any of the current freshmen that'll be moving up. And like you mentioned, you all could also see Cam Jones taking snap at that position as well. So there's certainly a lot of options and things to consider as you move towards the winter workouts and eventually spring ball.
Well, what we need to do is get that, hopefully, and I don't know that it'll shake out by then, but through winter and spring ball and into this early summer, we got to kind of figure out who our quarterback's going to be and get them a lot of reps, because they're, going to be a first-year starter. But we're going to have some big kids there next year, and this sophomore class is very talented, especially in terms of, a lot of height and size. So hopefully we'll be able to make a run. There's a lot of really talented kids back, though. Singleton's back for Mifflin that we have to deal with. Ivy's back at Township that we have to deal with. If you look to playoffs, the Pribula kid from Central York is a phenom at quarterback, and he's back. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, Justin and I hope that that's 3 Penn State recruits that you just mentioned.
Yes,
Two of them are already with Penn State. We need one more.
And quick side note, Pribula and that crew from Central York definitely turned some heads this weekend. It's not unknown to people that, as they're running through their league schedule, people, they're getting attention because they're putting up gaudy numbers, but still okay. But to put 40 on Central Dauphin was,
what was interesting about that game is, Central Dauphin fumbled twice inside the 10 going in. And then they have a Hail Mary touchdown pass thrown at the end of the first half. And then they run the second half kickoff back. That's 28-point swing right there.
Right, yeah.
Dauphin's offense isn't designed to come from behind like that. So, give Central York their due. They have, I think, 5 D1 kids, but they're all skill kids.
Wow.
So I don't know if Pribula is going to have that cast around him. Like last year, Caleb had many, many, many more passing yards. I think he threw for 1,400 yards last year, but he also had Brady Gibble and Troy Corson was healthy all year. And, he had a much better receiving core to go to. And that's what Pribula had this year. He had a lot of really good skill kids. So most of them, I believe, were seniors. So could be a little different next year.
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. And last week, Justin and I, we posted the future schedules that were coming up only because the new LL Burks schedules came out, which was cool to just see what was going to be happening. And I know that that's 2 years away. The only question that Justin and I wanted about this, if this is something that came up with you and Drew, was the possibility of when Mifflin would appear on those schedules. If that was something that would be talked about for the middle of the season when all the upper sections in the new LL Burks have their buys, or if that was something that would stick to Labor Day weekend, because that's everyone's asking, when are we going to play Mifflin when that happens?
I suspect it's not etched in stone yet, but I suspect it's going to be week 6 or weeks. We both have a bye week the same week, and week 6 or week 7. I don't remember which one it was.
It's
and trying
6.
to find a game then is very difficult because the team's in their league. So my guess is that it'll be then, because it's much easier to find games the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, well,
that makes sense.
I had mentioned to Jeff Reinert about crossovers, and he said that the LL League wanted nothing to do with mandating crossovers anymore, that a lot of teams within the new 37-team conference would just schedule each other. And Justin had mentioned, well, maybe Mifflin stays earlier in the season and you pick up someone like Exeter, who is also going to be in the same, not the same section, but the same league. They would be available, which would allow Mifflin to stay earlier in the year. But figure, why not ask someone that might know the discussions a little bit more than us, just
spitballing here, yeah.
Well, Exeter's bye week isn't the same week as our bye week.
Okay, well, there you go.
So if we're looking at Exeter, that would be, like, if we look at the 3 we'll have 6 league games, and the Mifflin, if you figure Mifflin week 6 or 7, that still leaves us 3 we got to pick up at the beginning of the year. So, if Exeter wants to go, we probably would go Central, Dauphin, Exeter, and whoever.
Someone else. Yeah. Would Springford be back in that conversation, possibly for week 3?
Yeah. I know Central York is open week 0, but I don't know if they'll want to play us week 0. Springford will be back in the mix, depending on what. But that's 2 years away, so it's hard to say what's going to happen in their league.
Right. So the 2021 schedule, has anything come up about that? Just with the idiosyncrasies of this season and things being shifted and canceled, is everyone going to hold up to the 2-year agreements to finish that 2-year cycle? Like, is Central Dauphin planning to come to Gursky? I assume Wilson's still going to Mifflin, but I didn't know if any of that had come up in the discussions during the weird scheduling this year.
As far as we know, everything's going to continue as planned.
So the only other one that I was interested in is if Martin Luther King was going to come to Gursky on September 17th, since we didn't get to go there this year. But
who knows whether the thing is going, and yeah, hard to say. I would think, everybody had 2-year contracts, and I would think they're just going to, because everybody's in a 2-year cycle anyway. So
right,
it would be tough to change it in the middle of it.
Cycle. Right. Yeah, it would be hard. Especially for people who are having trouble filling those spots to begin with. I can't imagine it's just all of a sudden going to be easier to fill it for 1 year, So I think a lot of people will be at the spot they were last year trying to fill those spots.
Justin,
I think hot news flash here. I just got a text that said Manheim Central canceled the JV game.
Oh. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate knowing that.
Breaking news.
No JV game.
Yeah. And I don't know that we'll be able to find anybody. I mean, maybe somebody local. I don't know.
At 9:20 on a Sunday night.
But you know what? Those kids, they lost the game last week because we canceled because we don't like to play the week of districts. And then and then we didn't get in the districts anyway. So, there might be somebody that's out there. I don't know. We'll call around first thing and go from there.
So, speaking of last week's game, when Wilson beat Hempfield to clinch the section championship, you got to coach against a former assistant in George Ager. What did you make of his first season leading Hempfield after that team. And Justin always say that Hempfield is a sleeping giant in the LL, and we think George could be the guy that could wake them up. What do you think about his first year with the Black Knights?
I think he did, a pretty nice job. I mean, you inherit a team and and then you inherit all the issues with COVID. So trying to get your offense in and your defense in a limited schedule. He brought on a lot of good coaches, I think, a lot of people he's very comfortable with, that he's known for many years. And, his connections at F&M helped him there. So he brought in some guys he played with. And, I think he's I think he did a nice job overall.
Yeah, I think, we said it's a heck of a year to take over, and I mean, he was within the, I know he teaches there and he was within the program already. So like he had that going for him, but man, like of all the years to try and, put your mark on the program, not necessarily easy, but, I said he had his guys ready to go last week, and that, that says something because and they were playing for, a share of the section title. It wasn't like they weren't playing for anything, but, they knew they weren't making districts or anything like that. But, he had them ready to go. They played hard.
They got pounded by Township the week before, but Hess had broken his arm and didn't play, and Jimenez, their number one receiver, didn't play. So, you go into a game like that without two of your top weapons. I mean, we know how that is.
Yes.
But, Jordan's trying to put it all together. So he'll do a good job. He's a good young coach.
Absolutely, for sure. So we will get to see them again next year. Of course, we'll have to go down to Landisville next year. So
hey, pizza after the game.
That's true. Yeah, Justin, we've been doing this for so long now. We have our food spots at all the away games. So we always bring up Millersville, and for Penn Manor, we always eat at the Sugar Bowl. Last year, we ate there twice.
Yeah, we ate there pregame and postgame last year. It was wonderful.
So. Yeah, but unless, Justin, you have anything else to ask Coach?
I do not.
Well, Coach Dahms, we appreciate you joining us again. We wish we could have talked to you after the games this year. Would have had a bunch of questions for you, but in the COVID area, we're just trying to keep our distance as best as possible. But we appreciate you joining us on the phone this evening, and we want to congratulate you on another successful season, yet another section championship, and continuing the streak that Wilson is so fond of. And obviously you can probably tell that Justin and I and many of our listeners are very anxious for what lies ahead in 2021.
Well, I want to thank you guys for all you do for Wilson football. You give us a lot of good PR, and you're always there when we need something. And thank our fans, even though they were very limited this year. I know everybody I talked to watched it when it was being streamed. So it'll be interesting to get back to the social event that a Friday night football game is next year.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Amen to that. I hope that's the case. We very much look forward to pack stands at Gursky and a traveling contingent around Lancaster, Lebanon, and Berks next year. So thanks again, Coach Dahms. Best of luck with the indoor track, and we hope you get a spring track and field season this year.
Hope so.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right. We'll see ya.
See ya. All right. So we appreciate Coach Dahms taking time to chat with us here on the season finale of the Bulldog Hour. We only got the 13 episodes this year, but again, in a year like this, with everyone's backs up against the wall and just hoping the team and players got to take the field, we'll take it. So 13 episodes down. This will be it for us unless something crazy would come up that we have to talk about it. You will probably won't hear from us again until usually the end of February is when we'll do the season 7 premiere, a couple weeks after the Super Bowl, and we'll get things going with a little winter update. But you're going to not hear from us for a few months. Although if you do want to continue to hear Justin and I talk about other things, we will be back on the Joe Mays and J-Raff show, which is our regular show that we normally do on Sunday evenings outside of Wilson football season. And we mostly talk about professional football, a little bit of college football, and from time to time, maybe hockey, basketball, or baseball.
Yeah,
But we're still
honestly, I don't know that I want to talk about any of those right now.
we're still mostly football guys. So I will be back on that show 2 weeks from tonight, November 15th. We'll be back. So if you do want to hear us, if you like Sunday evenings with Joe and Justin, do give us a listen. Especially if you're an Eagles fan and you want to hear Justin self-destruct about the Philadelphia football team.
Hey, the Eagles, we have a name.
It's right. For how long? So we didn't get to do our housekeeping at the beginning, so I do want to run through that really quickly. I want to make sure that we thank our sponsors, May's Sandwich Shop and Small Player Big Play. Definitely check out the streaming app for youth sports, Small Player Big Play. It's available on the Apple and Google app stores, the Android app store. They've been broadcasting a bunch of stuff, so you definitely should have that on your phone. It's such a great app to have. And we appreciate the donations we've received from our 2 anonymous donors. And hopefully I covered the questions that they all wanted me to ask this evening. There are a few ways that you can help us besides the sponsorships, advertising, and donations. Please visit bulldoghour.com, our website, and spread the word.
Yeah, like and share. That's the best way.
Again, we don't know when the next live show will be, so we're going to skip through that slide, but it will probably be in about 3 to 4 months. Sometime in February is our best guess for that. So I didn't make a new slide for it, but I will mention the player of the game for Manheim Central. Now, back-to-back weeks for him has to be senior quarterback Caleb Brown.
Yeah, we kind of referenced it in the discussion with Coach Dahms, but to break the quarterback rushing record for a game 1 week and then to shatter it the next week, pretty good.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the game stats or the individual stats, but Caleb had 21 rushes for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns, a long of 80. He averaged 11.6 per carry. That's with 21 carries, which is impressive in its own right. But he also was 17 of 23 passing for 155 yards and 3 touchdowns, one of them going for 41 yards, which was a beautifully thrown ball to a wide open Troy Corson, who I'm very happy for Troy that he got to play in this game.
Yeah.
It had been in doubt. He didn't play defensively or return kicks, but he ended up having 6 catches for 69 yards and a score. Caleb also connected with TJ Flight and Gavin Leonard on passing touchdowns. We also do want to make sure we send our well wishes to Corey Powers, the senior tight end outside linebacker, and someone who got to make one of the best plays of the season last week at Hempfield. The Austin play, which is kind of Wilson's Philly special as it came about, throwing the pass to kind of give Wilson some distance against Hempfield. Corey suffered an injury yesterday. We just want to make sure that let him know that we're thinking of him and we're hoping for the best.
Yeah.
But I think that about covers it. We're going to wrap up here with our final thing is a word from our sponsor, Small Player Big Play.
Introducing Small Player Big Play app, the all-sports social media app for young athletes. Live stream events for your friends and family who can't be there. At home or at work, they can watch your streaming on their phones or on TV by using a mirroring device or AirPlay 2. Download the app from the App Store or Google Play and create an account using a valid email address. That's it. Now you can find friends, join groups, or make new ones. You can upload and watch your own content for free. Watch YouTube uploads for free. Even more streaming options are available with our subscription plans and in-app purchases. Download the app and start sharing with the world your passion for sports today.
All right, so that is a wrap on episode 13 of the Bulldog Hour 6th season, and it also is the last you'll hear from us on this show in 2020. So for Justin, I just want to thank everyone who supports the show, not just our sponsors, but everyone, all the parents and fans out there that tell us that they watch the show. We really appreciate it. We do it for the program and for the players. We're very disappointed that we did not get to talk to any of them after the games this year. Obviously, it was not by choice by anyone. It's just the way things worked out this season, but we hope that we can be back full force next year with season 7 and the 2021 football season, and we'll keep you updated about the team as often as we can.
Absolutely.
So again, if you'd like to hear from us more over the coming months before the Bulldog Hour starts up again, do check out jmnjrradio.com or search for the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, and you can watch or listen to us there, talk about professional sports, mostly the NFL.
Yeah.
So, all right, Justin, anything else to say before we get out of here?
No, it's while the year didn't necessarily end exactly how we would have hoped, not necessarily with the game itself, but with just kind of the situations, the way they bounced back after that opening loss, they have a lot to be proud about this year. Proud of, I guess, this year. And so, it was great. It was great to see this team kind of come along and be successful.
Oh, 100%. Completely agree with everything you said. While a hugely successful season.
Yeah.
6-1. And
outright section champs.
Outright section champs, huge, and
they get a flag. They get a flag.
Right, that's right. I already got it up on BulldogHour.com. I already sent out that picture. I know Barry was already working on getting it ordered, so they're gonna have to add a few more flag staff soon, which is great. Absolutely incredible, and appreciate all the hard work and dedication from the coaches, from the school, and obviously from the players and the parents and parents organization. Everything that they do for the team. All around, it just makes for a successful program, and the most important part of that is that it leaves a legacy with the kids. So many kids from every team. I mean, I talked to kids that I started coaching back in 2009. One of them coaches with me now. Actually, a couple of them have been back coaching with us now, and I hear from them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram all the time. So it's one big family affair. So hopefully everyone enjoys, and Justin and I will be around to do this in the future, and we're looking forward to it. But I think that's about it. So we're gonna sign off for 2020 and end the Bulldog Hour 6th season. But just remember, until we're back, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.